Hello, everybody. All right, all right, all right. We
All
are
right, all
back.
right, all right, all right. We are LIVIN.
We are LIVN and something else it's coming up. So this is chapter 3 of our coming of age, and so we are finally doing days. So we're recording this just so people know for video and for audio, and we will do our best to capture the audio. But keep in mind we are looking at a slide deck, so we'll be referencing visuals. We'll actually have a couple clips. All of us are wearing, well, not all, but most of us, many of us are wearing shirts, Dazed and Confused shirts, the air raid shirts, and we have some
Woo.
some air raid stories. So
And
this
these were
chapter,
designed by Caitlin Coolwald, our
they
friend
were,
and our designer of all things Cine Journeys.
and
And
again,
so, yeah, you got to get your hands on this shirt. It's pretty awesome.
yeah, and she just heard from her. She's working on the house shirt now, so that one's going to be fun.
Woo.
So yeah, coming of age. So we'll say goodbye to the boyhood graphic, and really this is a good time because we get older. Now, of course, Dazed and Confused is not. It's still a teen movie. It's still about high school and I guess graduation a little bit. But and the Green Ray is about young adulthood, I'd say.
Yeah, we do
But
get
yeah,
older, but the girls, they stay the same
they
age,
stay the
Aaron.
same age. Yeah.
That's
So
just a very pervy line, which is hilarious.
Yeah, there are a few of those, and I appreciate Slater for being the voice of reason on
The
this.
voice of reason, man.
So so of course we have our rules, and we're just going to say that if you break the rules today, we're not going to be we're not going to come down too harsh on you, but we will have a paper that you'll need to sign by the end of the day. And if you need an attitude adjustment, if you're hanging with the wrong crowd, we're going to point some fingers. So just keep that in
That's
mind.
right.
Be on your best behavior. Um, so actually, it's a friend of our family. Brought up an interesting point just about coming of age movies. I mean, not just recently, but this person doesn't like coming of age movies because they feel that they are slanted towards delinquency, and just for lack of a better term, we've seen on other films we've seen this month. There's a lot of misbehavior. I mean, really, just everything in Superbad is enough to cover the entire month. Um, and I don't know how you all feel, and maybe we can get into that in some of the conversation later. But I think that a lot of these films have actually good people, and I use these three examples. They're pretty good students, and I think The Edge of 17 is an example, a positive
Hmm.
example of a student. I'm Clueless is a little little on the fence. And what I think funny about Days or interesting about Days, which we'll get into, is it really has everybody. It has all the different cliques and social classes, smart people, stoners, the jocks, but they all get high and drink. That might be kind of the 70s too, so I don't know. And maybe they just
Well,
didn't.
and Aaron, one thing I said to you before this is that how do we define delinquency?
Hmm.
Because some of the and yeah, some kids are worse than other kids, right? But
Right.
there
Yeah.
is a thing that we all go through, and we all make mistakes, and we all do things that are not necessarily right. And so at what point is it like, are you out there stealing cars? That would be delinquency. Did you go to a party and drink underage drink? I don't know. What part of it is like the natural part of being a teenager and learning the ropes, and what part of it is actually tipping into, like, you know, really bad delinquent
Yeah.
behavior. So I think
Criminal
that's a
behavior. Yeah.
debate, right? That would be a debate,
Mm.
you know, but I understand what that person's saying. But at the same time, I'm kind of like, oh, being a teen is all about screwing up,
Yeah.
and that's how you learn to be a better adult.
And so again, because we're recording, the films we have on the screen are Clueless, Stand and Deliver, and Easy A. But I think you could even say like Lady Bird, for example. She's a rebellious kid. But yeah, we all have our challenges. And there's another movie, and the movie's not coming to mind, but there's one that says there's a time for everything, and that's college. So maybe that'll be another
Right.
journey someday. So anyway, let's get into the Green Ray, and we will ask. We want to keep the discussion and the presentation a little brief this time, even though this film is worthy of a lot of in-depth discussion. I think it's a very dense film. It's a very different film, even for Romer, but um, but we just have a lot for days. We've been preparing for Dazed and Confused for weeks, months, years. I don't know, our lives. So
Our entire lives,
our
Aaron.
entire lives, yeah. I checked. I've logged Dazed and Confused 5 times on Letterboxd, and how long has Letterboxd been around? So yeah, that says a lot about me. So anyway, The Green Ray, Le Rayon Vert, directed by Eric Rohmer, one of the unique French New Wave, Nouvelle Vague directors. And I don't know that he entirely fit in. I think he was more the right bank. If I always confuse those two. I shouldn't, but he is famous for really these three series. So Six Moral Tales, which was in the early days of the New Wave, Comedies and Proverbs, and then Tales of the Four Seasons. So this was really the 60s, early 70s, 80s, and the Tales of the Four Seasons were the 90s. And I have a lot of allergies, so I feel like I'm about to sneeze a million times. I'm going to try to hold it off. Okay. So now, okay, I don't know why I chose myself and my mouth to talk about French films, so I'm not going to say this correctly, but Marie Riviere, I can't say the R's in the right way. So if anybody wants to take a stab at that later,
You don't want
uh,
me to. It'll be Marie Riviere.
there you go. That's exactly how it is. So, one thing about Romer is he did have some loyalty to his cast, and so she has actually been in 10 Romer films, and she's done some other things, but primarily she's just known for being in Romer films. In fact, this image is from A Tale of Autumn, actually, and I have another image from that later. This was actually her second Romer film. The first one she had a smaller part, but this time she had the lead, and she would go on. I think even throughout his later career, she would continue to act in his films. Really, she's known as one of the greats, and I think probably if you were to look at Romero's body of work, she would be considered really the star, the muse, whatever you want to call it. So, and I think she's really good in The Green Ray. Um, yeah, knew that was going to happen. Oh yeah, sorry. Oops. So, Michael Cera. So, speaking of Superbad and earlier movie, there's a little Criterion Channel short that we linked to here. It's really only about 2 minutes. It's just a clip of a longer interview with Peter Becker, and he talks about the Green Ray. And you might think he would talk about it in context of some of the other films he's been in, but no, he's just like us, and I recommend you watch those 2 minutes or so. And he just talks about what he loves about Romer, and he's a real cinephile. In fact, we might need to get him on someday. So we'll tell him we did his film Superbad and The Green Ray. Maybe that will entice him. But it's a good couple minutes, quick watch. Then, of course, Jules Verne's The Green Ray. It is a book. It is not exactly like it is portrayed in the Romer film. I did not go and read it, but um, the what I really wanted to know is basically, is this bullshit? So, it was this a myth, and it was a complete myth, completely made up phenomenon. I don't know if the characters in the film believed that or not, believed in it, and I don't think it matters. And we'll get into a couple of the other beliefs they have in the film. I think what matters is what matters to them, because this really is, in a way, like I have here, an adult coming of age. So Delphine is the lead character, and she is, I put not comfortable in her own skin. She finds her wants to be different from those around her. She's skeptical of men, lonely, and I think she's a very different character than what you normally see in not just a Romer film, but just any kind of, I'm using the phrase coming of age, but we've seen films already that are about young men or youngish men trying to, for lack of a better word, score. So her perspective is different in that she is lonely and she is in want of a relationship, but she's she is don't want to use a word as strong as repulsed, but I'll just say repelled by people that are aggressive towards her, and she wants to find romance on her own terms. So she's always looking for answers, and I think one of the interesting motifs is this little belief, So they have playing cards, horoscopes. Playing cards is interesting. I have not really heard of that. Just random playing cards around, around a landscape or a geography as a sign of anything. I just think of those as just discarded cards. But what do I know? I don't believe in just randomly finding. I guess that's a King of Hearts. It's V. So yeah. But she was always looking for, her Le Rayon Vert, so, Ver, I guess is the way to pronounce that. So she was looking for a sign of some sort. Um, and so one thing, if you watch this film, you might have noticed that there are some similarities with Linklater, and it was not coincidental that we programmed these together. So here is an interview with the Museum of Modern Image. So their magazine is called Reverse Shot, and they did an interview with Linklater. And so this is RS Reverse Shot. They said they asked, "You have this generosity and fluidity of conversation that you'd be hard pressed to find outside of Eric Rohmer, and what ultimately makes Before Sunrise and Sunset films unique to American cinema. Are you influenced by him at all?" And Linklater says, "As much as I am Godard, Truffaut, and 100 other filmmakers, with the exception of his film The Green Ray or Summer, which is pretty wonderful and more of a direct influence. I totally admire Romer. My comment to that is, thank you. I think he's a master, but I don't think he makes anything so simple. He's like a mathematician. He's very precise. His plots are more intricate. There's more twists and turns, more flowing through them." So, yeah, obviously, Linklater is a massive fan, and yes, so as he cites two movies, The Green Ray, in which you've seen. If you've seen Before Sunset, I think a lot of people here might say that the ending is reminiscent of Before Sunset. I don't know if we can not spoil that movie. It feels like everybody's seen it. Um, I will just say A Tale of Summer. I don't know who here has seen it. It is a very good film, and it's my favorite of his Four Seasons trilogy. It is more of the walking and talking variety, and I think I have a slide on that actually right here. This is his male protagonist, Melvin Poupad. You might know him from other movies. He was in Lawrence Anyways. Amanda Langlet, she was in a couple other Romers, and she was famously in Pauline at the Beach, and she played a daughter in a teenage. And this, of course, is I think Pauline at the Beach was like 83, 84, maybe 82, I forget. So this was 95. So she was a young adult by this time. Great performance by both of them. But if you haven't seen A Tale of Summer, I do recommend it. If you like Linklater, you can probably see that, okay, 95 Before Sunrise was 97. Yeah, I think he saw that movie while he was watching the script. That's just my speculation. And that is, well, one more slide. Sorry. We did want to touch on the male gaze. And I don't know how many of you listen to Imogen Sarah Smith on Criterion Now, but we got to thinking about the male gaze, and we brought that up to her because she has done some research and studies, and she wrote the essay for Tale of the Four Seasons. And so I actually transcribed everything she said, but it was way too much for a slide. And her spoken word is just as magical as her writing. Although she might not agree, she likes to edit. But she did push back on the idea of Eric Romero and the male gaze, and that's because, well, for a lot of reasons. She really said that she didn't think he had, really the behavior of the characters was really connected to the authorial intent. He was really just writing about something that was foreign to them, and actually, as she said, felt that he did not approve of his character's actions. He actually was trying to make them to be less than moral in his moral tales. But then in his comedies and proverbs, he had a lot of women protagonists, and in fact, Imogen had mentioned that. through her studies, she found Rohmer had said that when he got to summer, it was his first time in maybe a decade or more of having a male protagonist, and he felt uncomfortable. So imagine that. This shot is actually from A Tale of Autumn, and this is another. I forget her name. I should have wrote it down. Another one of his actresses that in his stable. And actually, this is one that I would push back on that a little bit, but I'm certainly not going to argue with Imogen about when she studied Romare so much. But I think it's an interesting conversation. And in this case, we do have some discussions. So, spoiler alert on the screen, we have the ending of the movie there. That just brief moment that I think is wonderful, and then we have an image of her crying, and she did. It was a difficult, hour and a half for her, longer than an hour and a half. But yeah, so we'll get to the discussion, and so feel free to.
So, Aaron, I'm just going to jump in just with a couple preliminary thoughts. I think this is my first Romero film. Um, Beautifully shot. I kept forgetting that this was made in 1986. It felt very modern to me. The the wardrobe was fantastic. Oh, to be in France in 1986 with these fashions. It's all stuff that I would wear like right now. Um, but I will. Uh, so um, and I largely liked it. I thought the ending was absolutely stunning. Kind of a catch your breath kind of ending. But I will say that when it comes to portraying a single woman, um, you know, it's funny what men think women want or what men think women are thinking. And yes, there are probably women out there who don't want to travel alone and they are lonely and they are looking for something. But the way I kind of felt about this was like she needed to be fixed. All of the women, all of her friends around her were trying to fix her. And the whole time I'm like screaming at the screen, like, just go on the trip by yourself. Like, you don't have to have someone with you. And so I think, and yeah, women are not a monolith. There's all different kinds, but there is kind of this common thread, I think, in a lot of these types of movies where the woman's not going to be satisfied until she's found the right match for her. And that's just not always the case. Um, I will, but again, that's a minor quibble I had with this movie. I will also say, and this is something I said to Aaron, is I think I I don't have a problem necessarily with male gaze. I actually find it kind of fascinating to see what men think of women, and to see what they get right and what they get wrong. I also have no problem with there being desire being shown through a director's eyes. That I think can be very romantic and sexy. It depends on how it's done. So I'm not just a stick in the mud here. But I do think there are other. Again, I've only seen one Romare, and I'm gonna check out the seasons box set and everything. But I really think that I'm more in line with like David Lean's portrayal of women and Almodovar's portrayal of women, and even Palin Pressburger. I think what else does it? I even said De Sica on some of his movies. Fellini. Those I think I may um, prefer more. And I kept comparing this film to David Lean's Summertime and how the lonely woman traveling. I think I may be in line with that a little more. However, this film was gorgeous, beautiful, stunning. Yeah. So just wanted to get that out.
Thank you, Jill. Rodney was first, but I hope you don't mind, Rodney. I would like to hear another female's perspective, and Rachel has her hand up. And so, Rachel, do you want to jump in there? I hope I'm not putting you on the spot if you were looking at the
No,
hands.
you're good. If Rodney doesn't mind me stepping in front of him. So I agree with what Jill said. And I texted her after I watched the movie, and I didn't want to ruin anything, but I just asked if she'd watched it yet. And she said no. And my reaction was the Spike, um, not my cup of tea gif. And that said, it's mostly because of the way this single introverted woman is portrayed. Like everything Jill said about like the way it was shot and the clothes, all of that was great. But I just really did not like that, like the way she, like, I get it. You're upset that your trip to Greece gets canceled or that the person you're supposed to go with bails on you. Be pissed off, but still go. And then when people are trying to help you, don't push back so much. I don't know. I am single. I'm an introvert, but I love to travel and I've traveled internationally alone. And it's a lot of fun and you can do a lot by yourself. And I actually kind of prefer it because I get to choose what I do and when I do it. And if I'm tired after like doing one thing, I can go back to the hotel and nap and not have to like do whatever the group is doing. And I get to make all the decisions and I get to choose what to do the entire time as opposed to like, oh no, I just went for a walk and I cried again because, I'm so depressed. Or, she goes to some vacation village and she can't get the keys right away. And she's like, goes for another walk and then decides that she's going to go back to Paris. I feel like she needs to be comfortable in her own skin before she can be comfortable doing anything. And I did not get that from her. I feel like yes, she's young and she's still figuring things out, but I don't think that like hopping from one relationship to another is going to help her. And I am glad that by the end of the film, she kind of has done some growing and has become a little more outgoing and, does things that are unplanned. But I would have loved to see like that movie from the beginning. And after watching, I also looked on IMDb because I was like, well, I don't know, like maybe it was written by a woman and I shouldn't have such criticism. But Rohmer is the one who did the story, and then a woman adapted the story into the screenplay. So I don't know who to criticize. She might have just been doing what was asked of her as the screenwriter. Um, I don't know. I'm still digesting it, but it really was not my favorite.
Rachel, is this your first Romero? Just
Yes.
curious. Okay.
So again, like I'm not giving up on him as a filmmaker, but I don't know that I would run back to watch this.
Yeah, I think I'll maybe keep some of my comments offline, but this one is widely thought of as one of his best female portrayals, and so I don't want to say he's not for everybody, but he might not be for you, Rachel. And just being honest, because yeah, and Imogen makes some great points. I did rewatch that part of the episode, and we were about to get into the Green Ray, but the thing is that wasn't the topic of the episode, so we didn't really get to hear her say her piece. I know she likes the Green Ray a lot. We talked about it, but yeah, no, a great take, and that's one thing. One of the criticisms I've heard about Romer is that he's not really living in the real world. That said, I don't know what it's like to be a female in France, and I don't know, I think maybe Jill and you have a little bit of more of an idea what it's like to be a female, and by a little more, I mean like 100% more. Um, but the France part, I'm not sure about. Okay, we have four hands, and we do really need to go quick on this one because we just have so much for days, and I don't want to keep you all here all night. So I will ask for your comments to be brief at pop because I don't want to skip anybody. But Rodney's next.
Yeah, I'll be brief. I love both Jill and Rachel's takes. I think that's honest and important. I also found it really beautiful with the locations that she kept traveling to. I was like, how can you be so sad when you're surrounded by these amazing sunsets and these amazing just locales that you're traveling to? But I thought it really captured loneliness and how she can feel. And everywhere she went, she just didn't fit in with, even with people who she wasn't trying to get with. Like even if it was she met that one girl who was traveling as well. And she says, you can't show all your cards. And she's like, I don't have any cards to show. And that just broke me down. Like that was just so, just a perfect line. And it kind of went with her finding the cards all over the place. So I think maybe that kind of links with her finding herself. And just in the end, then she finally just accepts, and she's heading home. This guy comes up to her and comments on something that she likes, something that she's interested in, and kind of forms that relationship. And they sort of start a relationship. And I just thought it was that last third was really beautiful. And yeah, I really enjoyed this. And this is my first Rohmer as well.
All right, and Chris.
First remark for me as well. I loved it. I actually think I have a slightly different take on the character than other people. I sort of had that feeling when I was watching it as well. I had her experiences almost the stages of grief, that kind of denial, and especially her crying wasn't so much about self-pity or being sad or lonely. It was just a part of that process of this is how I'm feeling right now, and this is the way I'm emoting. She was smart enough to kind of take herself away a lot of the time where she could, to kind of see and. I love the portrayal of her as I had her as a pegged a little bit older, I think, than most people watching this, as somebody that is sort of struggling with society's perception of what she should be and where she should be in her life and where she is herself. Like all the places she does go to are sort of linked to people that she knows, past relationships, etc. I agree that the ending would be much more powerful if she had just heard about the place from the guy at the train station and went of her own accord just because she wanted to do it herself because it had no and not involved him. I think that would have been really powerful because that would have been her making a fresh decision for herself, but you probably wouldn't have had the last shot impact. And the last thing I'll say about it, do you know my color blindness? I wasn't sure whether she was just showing that people can be contrary because I don't see green, right? So I was like, does she just look at the sunset and just accept in her head that it's green and therefore a sign? And I sort of like the poetry of that in my own head, with her just saying like I'm just in a different place and I'm ready to move on with my life and kind of do that. So that was mine. But yeah, I really enjoyed it and loved the thoughts of Jill and Rachel as well. It was always gives me such
Yeah.
good perspective about things that I didn't see.
It's known for the ending, and Rodney pointed out that it wasn't a great transfer on the Criterion Channel. I do have the Region B disc, and that's where I watched. I think this is my fourth time seeing it, so and I meant to compare. However, I don't. It's not available in the U.S. And I think even the Arrow is out of print, although I think they reissued it. So next we have Christian.
Yes. So this movie kind of snuck up on me. Uh, yeah, I was ready to kind of dunk on this movie a little bit, and kind of I found her pretty insufferable at times, and difficult to like. And I'm sure that to some degree was by design. But something happened in that final third, and I think the ending really went a long way toward that. I felt it. I actually felt a certain relief and sympathy for her. Whether that means that she actually finds something, that's one thing. You can interpret that how you want. Looking back on it, I think when I kind of took a step back, I realized that this is really just a tale of somebody who's relatively young, trapped in this sort of cycle. And I think not being able to adapt, and all those awkward scenes where she's at the table and everyone's just sort of just grilling her and basically shitting on her choices. And even when she, she gets nervous and kind of can't really explain why she's a vegetarian, that scene was funny to some degree, where she just kept saying, it's airy, it's like, it's just, lettuce, it's just airy, that's different than, meat and stuff like that. And that sort of awkwardness, I found her performance actually to be, a very strong performance looking back on it. And I did love the local color. I just love kind of seeing all these different places, how people sort of vacationed back in the 80s, and sort of some of the freeness of France as well, and the openness over there. And she seemed to be trapped everywhere she went. There was always something kind of, either people were surrounding her literally as like a cage, or she was in some place where there was some kind of an obstruction. I found her, ultimately, I think it redeemed, and I came back around on it. I actually enjoyed this film a lot.
Yeah, that scene at the restaurant, or at the outdoor seating, it kind of felt
Yes.
like a prison, like she was
Oh,
cornered.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, even the way they
I
shot it, she's like in the middle, surrounded by all these people telling her. Even when she has that argument with that girl who just came, I just sometimes I have to be mean to get through to people. I mean, she was also not a great person, but that was a tough one too, like a real
yeah.
tough moment. So
Roman,
she just kept catching L's, and
yeah.
I was, at some point I was like, some of it was self-inflicted. I have to admit, but I did end up having sympathy and kind of rooting for her at the end.
Just having seen it a lot, Rohmer really can block a shot. I mean, like, Jill was talking
Yes.
about, there's a lot of quibbles, but as far as filmmaking, even on some of his films, even to me, are cringeworthy, but they're still well made and well shot. So Joe, you get the last word.
Okay, so I'll try to be brief, but I really appreciate everybody's thoughts. I'm still definitely processing this one. This was I haven't seen a lot of Rohmer. This is my second Rohmer. I've seen this in my night mods, and so far I'm intrigued. I mean, definitely appreciate the filmmaking. This film in particular was definitely beautifully shot. I love its use of color. I love the way all the locations were. I definitely noticed like his attention to detail with like blocking. Some other stuff too. I think actually like my experience was kind of like Christian's, where like I was a little bit like kind of leery about it. Probably actually for some of the reasons like Rachel and Jill mentioned, it seemed like a little bit like a sort of just like without him, I'm nothing kind of thing. And I was a little off put by that too at first. Thinking about it a bit more though, I was thinking about like the symbol of the green ray, right, which is supposed to be about like sort of getting a deeper understanding of like not only others but yourself, right? So I think part of the reason why it came together at the end for me, like kind of like it did for Christian, is because I think that she's supposed to be like in a transitory period, right? Like she doesn't even really know exactly like what she wants, right? So looking at like her behavior of like trying to find meaning through another person, looking at that through the lens of like her not really knowing exactly what she wants yet, and not have seen the right yet. That's kind of the way I was thinking about it, at least, right? Like that she's she doesn't know exactly what she's like this blank slate in a way, and she doesn't really have agency, but that's because sort of about how the challenge of like finding your agency, the challenge of finding like meaning, and the challenge of like trying to connect with other people, right? How we get in our own way in terms of being able to connect with other people, and also finding what's actually right for us. So I was thinking about it that way. I don't know if like I might be giving it a little bit too much credit in terms of the characterization, but that's what I was thinking about, at least with the ending. I think that piqued my interest a bit, and made me look at it as a little bit more maybe than just like all she needs is a man or something like that, right?
Yeah, good. Okay.
That was
Well,
great, Joe.
yeah, thanks, Joe. So, all right, well, let's move on to Dazed and Confused. All right, all right, all right. Yeah, we have We have so much for this. We do not have anything about the needle drops. So thank you, Jill. At least with your needle drops, we will not get blocked, or I don't think we'll get any copyright strikes.
I
If
don't
we
think
do, they're
anything I
really
just
good.
did at all resembles No More Mr. Nice Guy.
I
So
picked up on it. I think Alice Cooper
okay.
might be calling you. So Dazed and Confused. Yeah, I know. I used a image that cropped out Mitch here, but you know what? He touches his face all the time. There actually, it's not in here, but I didn't really get into
Oh,
Mitch. But there's a
little
drinking game about how
Mitch.
often he touches his face. But yes, um, hey, he's
Poor
a young
little
kid,
baby,
young
precious
actor.
Mitch.
We have a lot on this, but it's really good stuff. So Richard Linklater, not exactly a new director to anybody probably in this not only in this call, but really our entire universe of subscribers, audience, that sort of thing. I think he's really one of the great American filmmakers of our day. Oh, and by the way, since Jill is recovering from illness, but she is going to read the girl parts. Unfortunately, there's
Oh
not enough,
yeah.
not too many girl parts in this. No puns about girl parts, please. But
Well,
this
never
is
the one assistant football coach Aaron talks about. I know y'all been running around chasing Muff or whatever he said. Oh my God, this
that was
movie.
not where I
Anyways,
was going, Jill, but thank you for that color commentary. So anyway, before Dazed and Confused, Linklater was still starting out, and we'll get into this. It's tough to get a film like this made. So his student film was "It's Impossible to Learn to Plow by Reading Books." And it's a good movie. I like it, but it is definitely a student film. He tends to call it Plow. There is a lot of looking out of windows in a bus. And then he really made his impression or his impact with Slacker, which is in a way an experimental film. But even with that, you can see how he was influenced by Rohmer, although he took those influences in kind of a slightly different direction. But there is a lot of walking and talking in that film as well. It's just kind of more of like a relay race of walking and talking. But he was huge in Austin, and really, I think he always has been. He's a Texan, still is, and so yeah, that's Richard. And this picture here is an early still of him and Matthew McConaughey as a youngster. So nice stash, Matthew Wooderson. And so yes, and then after guy became a little big time. Although I think even though he's become a big director, I think he's remained pretty grounded. I hope you agree. Although and then this is a photo from the New York Times. This is definitely a very staged photo shoot, and he's aged a little bit. But after Days, he's done a ton, and so I just listed some of the highlights, which of course the aforementioned Before trilogy, Waking Life, which is very much a Linklater animated film. School of Rock, which is very much unlike a lot of his work, but it's a kind of a fan favorite. It's a lot of fun. We talked plenty about Boyhood this entire month. I think that's probably arguably one of his crowning achievements, if not this or the Before trilogy. And then there's spiritual sequel to this, which we did explore in the baseball journey. And actually, I'm glad that we have Hitman there because that's the Glenn Powell. He is just Ken, or I'm sorry, he's just Glenn. That's the big news this
he's
week.
just Glenn.
Yeah, he's just Glenn, big star. So Richard Linklater, thanks for uh,
Yeah,
bringing us
Glenn's in
giving us Glenn
Atlanta right
Powell.
now, Aaron. So maybe
Oh,
y'all
nice.
luck out and have a meeting. So
Yeah. Hey, see if does he want to do a journey? Let's see.
God, hey,
We have room
oh,
for
we
him.
could go on a journey.
I think everybody can go on a journey with Glenn Powell. That's kind of the
We could
point of this
all
week.
go on a journey with Glenn
Is he?
Powell.
Yeah, he's an equal opportunity journeyman. So
Whew.
okay, oh my God, this cast. So I did put photo credits. I couldn't find the photo credit for these 16 images here, but I love this photo. So if anybody can find it, let me know. So yeah, it's really almost like a high school yearbook picture. And yeah, there could be a 6 degrees of Days Confusion confused separation game, kind of like the Kevin Bacon, because there's so many actors that began their career and became stars. Some immediately. A couple were working. Jason London, I think, had done some things, but yeah, most of them, this was their kind of their breakthrough. So yeah, and we'll be talking a lot about some of the cast. And then we have a book. So Melissa Maerz, all right, all right, all right. She wrote an oral history of the book, of the film, and um, and I highly recommend that you read it. I think we've talked about books before, and they are breezy. This one is really one of the most unique film shoots, I think, in history, in my opinion. Maybe I'm a little biased because I love this film, but and there's so much. I do bring up some stories here coming up, but there's so much I can't cover. Like there's a pizza party audition. Really just the entire. You took these kids out to a location for a summer, and some bonded. It almost really was like high school. So yeah, highly recommend the book, and yeah, well done, Melissa. It came out about 2-3 years ago. So I am going to read some of excerpts from this, and so this is actually she found this in Linklater's diary, so it's really from him, but this was in his notes from the time. So we talk about teen movies we've liked. This is in reference to him talking to the studio or talking about the studios. So we talk about teen movies we've liked. I soon have to drop Over the Edge, River's Edge, and certainly Los Olvidados from my list of favorite teen movies. Rule number one, never like or discuss in positive terms a movie that didn't make lots of money. A great movie that maybe breaks even isn't any good until a decade later. And never mention that you like foreign films, you're an immediate suspect. So for now, it's the obligatory American Graffiti, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Breakfast Club references. I kind of like being in a genre, it's working for me. And then uh, they used American Graffiti. So this is actually a screenshot from the book, and I'm not going to read this one, but it basically just talks about how the producers, how people wanted to use American Graffiti. By the way, American Graffiti made a lot of money, so they kind of leaned into, and they were genuinely influenced by that. But yeah, here Linklater says whenever he talked about Dazed, he was like graffiti, 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 and he's referring to Tom, one of the producers of the movie. So, and oh, I'm sorry, Jim Jacks actually was the one that always championed graffiti. And his quote is, "Rick had told me he wanted to make an American Graffiti for the '70s. I thought that was a good idea." Yes, he did. Yes, he did. So he that. Thank you, American Graffiti, for helping to get this made. And here's a picture of Wooderson and Slater. He's like, "I know you. We were in third period together, I believe." I pretty much have this movie memorized. I love those little when he talks to the coach at the end, he's like, "Remember me from second period?" Everything is so so tunnel vision to him. So yeah, we'll keep on moving along here. So we have some clips, and these will autoplay, but this here is a clip of every scene that Matthew McConaughey is in. Matthew McConaughey, say it right for a change. So that's a lot easier than Marie Riviere. So we're going to talk about Kevin Pickford and Sean Andrews here in a moment. And I'm not going to play this here. It's about a 6-minute clip of all of his scenes. So I think we would all agree, most of us at least, that he stole all his scenes, and he became a big star as a result. So yeah, he sure did. So we will skip that for now. And this here is another one I'm not going to play. This is him on Howard Stern, and he's talking about how he got his role in Dazed and Confused. And it's an interesting story. This is also in Melissa Maerz's book. And, of course, in more detail in her book. But, basically he got in by being in a bar, and somebody discovered him, liked him, invited him to set. And, he did the rest. And and there's more on that. Matthew had an interesting week as he first began his film career. So this was going to autoplay, but let me skip it.
When you get your first movie.
Okay, so you can watch that later. And so yeah, the crazy Matthew McConaughey story. So yeah, his dad died actually right before shooting. So this is quoting Matthew McConaughey. And by the way, I'm not trying to do a Matthew McConaughey voice. I cannot
Before
do it justice.
shooting what, Aaron?
So my dad tried making love to my mother, 6:30 on a Monday morning. My dad had always told me and my two brothers, "Boy, when I go, I'm going to be making love to your mother." And he did. Talk about a badass. The guy called his shot about how he was leaving this earth, and he did it. I was trying to figure out by the way, these quotes are separated. The second quote is later down, as he's talking about really just his first exposure to the acting world, and he's reckoning with the loss of his father. So, I think we'd agree that Matthew McConaughey is a pretty deep thinker, at least that he comes across that way. And he was just very much internalized, and thinking about what it means to lose a father. So that's a very young age. So that is a tragedy, but that is what happened right before he was going to the set. And so yeah, he shot his shot. So I don't know if I'm glad my dad didn't tell me that, but I think just from what I've learned about McConaughey, it makes a little more sense. So Jason London, him talking about McConaughey, said Matthew wasn't on set, so it was like, "Where's Matthew?" And Rick takes me aside, like, "We're flipping the schedule around right now. We're trying to figure out what we're gonna do. Matthew's father died," and we're like, "Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god!" We look up and Matthew's right there, and I'm like, "Are you sure his dad died?" And then Linklater, I saw him walking up. I just ran over to him and we talked for a while. I was just trying to gauge where he was at, but he was like, "Nah, man, I'm good." And that kind of feels like Matthew McConaughey. I can't imagine what I would be like in similar circumstances, but yeah, he was ready to go. And so this is actually his friend. Monty Wills, a very close friend of McConaughey's back then. So after his dad dies, a switch flip for sure. You know, you hear these stories of like Bill Clinton meets John F. Kennedy when he's 16 years old and he decides one day I'm going to be president, or the moment that makes Tiger Woods decide I'm going to be the best golfer. After his father passed, I think some sort of ambition clicked into Matthew. Like, life is short and I'm going to do the things I'm good at. And I don't give a fuck what anybody else thinks. So that sounds like Matthew to a T. And there is something about him. Like, I don't care what he did, he was going to succeed. And when you read more about him in the book, and I know he has his own biography, um, the guy is really something, really impressive. And also, he didn't take his breakthrough for granted. This is him speaking, him quoted. People were like, "Don't you get tired of all right, all right, all right?" I'm not arrogant enough to be tired of that. Those are the first words I said in a job. I didn't know if that was going to be my last night's work. So here I sit, 27 years later, I made a career out of this thing that could have been a whim. It's the original lineage of the journey that has been my career to this day. So thank you, Matthew, also for using the word journey because we like that. But I think that's awesome about him, and he really has. You'll see here in a second. He really has leaned into his Wooderson persona, at least not the, at least the good parts. And then this is a quote just from Maerz in an intro of the McConaughey chapter. But the real reason the phrase caught on is that McConaughey became a one-man marketing team for it. He never misses an opportunity to explain its origin or say it in front of a crowd. When he won the Oscar for his performance in Dallas Buyers Club, he ended his speech with "All right, all right, all right." He has repeated the phrase in 1995's Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Next Generation, and 2012's Magic Mike. According to an amusing YouTube supercut titled "Every Matthew McConaughey All Right" in chronological order, McConaughey has used the word "all right" nearly 300 times on screen between 1993 and 2017. We did not pull that YouTube for this presentation because we don't need to be here all night, but I will try to dig it up and put it in the journey page. So if you want to watch 300 all rights, all right, all right, all right. So this is his Oscar acceptance speech, and I am going to play this. It might get blocked on the YouTube. I think it'll work as the audio, but we'll
Why are you
put it up
laughing?
and see what happens. So I'm going to go to the timestamp of 3:27, and if you can't hear, if you're listening to the recording and it's blocked, it'll be on our journey page. Yeah, he loves that.
Why are you laughing?
Sorry, did not mean to replay that. So here, thank you, Joe, for sending this. So just keep mowing, MOWIN. So I think this is just this week. Matthew McConaughey and Camilla McConaughey mowed the lawn without pants. Quote, "Trim grass, raise glass." So I guess this is who his hero was 10 years ago. I don't think he foresaw himself naked. But yeah, you got to keep mowing. So yeah, he is he's an interesting guy in a lot of ways. Quite a character. Um, okay, I think we're almost to a female part. Okay, maybe not yet. Okay, Kevin Pickford, Sean Andrews. If you remember, he's the
Don't
guy.
blame this on this has nothing to do with women here. This dude's a douche.
This dude is something. So we're gonna get into this one really quick. This is the guy that had the party busted. So here's Ben Affleck quote from the book. Sean was always going around with his shirt open and flexing his abs, and he earned the loathing of everybody because A, he was showing off his bod all the time and doing a hair flip, and B, he quickly took up with Mila, so naturally every guy was jealous of him. Somehow the energy that was happening in the hallways of the Crest Hotel was also bleeding into what was happening on camera. That is Mila Jovovich. I think I said that right. We'll get back to her. Jovovich, yeah. So too many Vos. Yeah, he was a character. He thought he was James Dean, basically, a combination of James Dean and Marlon Brando. So Jason London, because he was banging Mia, he thought he was the biggest stud in the world. Roy Cochran, he was too confident to the point where he would tell the whole hotel staff, "Save my sheets, I'm gonna be famous." Yeah, guys, save my sheets. Actually, I think he tried to sell his sheets for like $50 a square. He cut them up. Yeah, dude was something. Jason London, Sean and Mila had decided that they were going to live as if they had been to Woodstock in their hotel room. They took the bed apart and they built like a fort out of it, and they stayed just to themselves and didn't interact with anyone else. So very much Lennon Mono give peace a chance there. But yeah, they hadn't. Mila was 16 by the way at this time. I think
Yeah.
he was 18. And then here is the big quote. So I think I prevented he almost got into a fight with Jason London at one time. And so Linklater said, "I think I prevented a fight. It was like, oh, we've got a problem. You have to be best friends and you hate each other." I mean, everybody wanted to kick Sean's ass. And then Rory Cochrane, this is actually the last line of the chapter. He said, "If all the people in this book are all saying the same thing about him, that's fucking karma." I will say that he asked Linklater to make him die in a car crash during the film. Which, if you've seen the film, it's nothing that would just not have fit. So, but he really wanted to. He thought he was James Dean, and he really wanted to lean into that persona. He did kill his career. Basically, he did a few small films. Actually, as it turns out, since that book was written, he made a resurgence, and he went on a tour, and he actually released a song which was not as bad as I thought, but it was not like you could tell that he's no virtuoso. But the song kind of rocked in a way, but it also was kind of funny, a little bit of Schadenfreude, like you're doing this. But I did watch a YouTube he did for somebody's channel. That person, it was a very much a cupcake interview. They did not call him out on anything in the book, but he clearly read the book and he was very respectful towards everybody who had trashed him. So that is Kevin Pickford, Sean Andrews, and because he basically isolated himself, that actually allowed for McConaughey to get so many scenes in the second half of the movie. None of those were written for him. A lot of those were written for Andrews. So, okay, you're almost up, Jill. So, Parker Posey's Air Raid Heard Round the World. This image here is from that one of my favorite lines. "You love us. We're seniors. You love us." So Parker walked through the door, and from the moment I heard her say, "Oh, hey," it was like, who is this? Darla was originally a little more tough girl character, like some girls I remember from Huntsville. We're talking pretty country bumpkin, tough, mean girl types, a little chunky. But then Parker came in, and I was like, oh no, this is much better. That will be funny rather than just ugly. I completely agree. She nailed that part. And by the way, a lot of the film is based on people he knew in Huntsville, a lot of the characters, including Wooderson. So that's all in the book as well. And Jill, you're up.
Okay, I'm not going to do a Parker Posey voice here, but
No.
Rick said the crane is going to come down and it's going to land on you screaming. Air raid. The crane camera looked like this alien thing coming out of the sky, and it was going to land on me in a medium shot. So I thought that bigness was what was called for. I was like, okay, I can really scream.
Do you want to scream it, Jill? Air raid? You could do that, right?
Sure, why not? bitches. Yeah. Okay.
It's pretty good, pretty good. I wish I had a
All
better
right.
image of her. I love that shot when the crane comes down, and she screams. I mean, she just turns her head. It's just really a phenomenal shot. And yeah, she leaned into it. She can scream, so she brought her all. So uh, Jill, you were on again, but before I just want to give some context. Parker Posey and Joey Lauren Adams became really, really close friends, to the point where like they excluded everybody else. Like they became friends forever. So Jill, you want to read Joey Lauren Adams's lines?
Um, so I do this like little Joey Lauren Adams voice, and at first I didn't like Parker at all. At the callback auditions, she already had the part, and she was smoking and smacking her gum. And Parker was that drink of water I'd been so thirsty for. In LA, a lot of people I thought were cool, I realized later were posers. To be surrounded by that and then meet Parker, who is so authentic and so who she is, it was amazing.
This other one is still Joey here. You gotta finish.
Oh, Parker was larger than life. How can you not be attracted to her?
So
Yes,
I'm not doing that anymore. But
Jill Blake. I think there might be one more, but okay, I
oh
understand.
my
That
god,
might be
I'll just read it normal.
okay. Yeah, so they were very close. And this attracted people might read that the wrong way. As far as I know, it was a platonic or they have spouses, but who cares if they don't though? They became very, very good friends and hit it off.
Yeah.
But yeah, it took a minute. Like a lot, it really was like high school. So I think that's cool though that they became such good friends. Huge actresses of the night. I'm still actually. So we'll get back to Parker Posey when we hit Chris Guest. So nice teaser. There are a couple visual essays I put in here. I'm not going to play them. I think they're okay. This one is really about simplicity, and they're both pretty short. This is a Fandor visual essay, and I would have given credit, but they didn't list who made it. And I know there was at least one or two people that did these for Fandor, but let me just play that and. Sorry, don't want to get blocked here. And this one, I also, sorry, Christopher Ashen, I don't think is great. This is a short 6-minute one. And basically, he's just saying that the entire evening was mundanity, just another night for the characters. I think it's an interesting take. I don't quite agree. I think it was kind of a special night for a lot of them, especially this guy, Mitch. Maybe not quite. Yeah, actually, I would say for Pink as well. Maybe for Wooderson, maybe it was a typical night hanging with his high school friends. But yeah, if you want to watch that, yeah, like it says there, 6 minutes. And then there was the ending, and the ending was so I'm not going to ask you to read it in Joey's voice unless you want to, Jill. If you want to take a swig of
No,
water.
but I'll just read it. So there was a sadness to shooting that last scene in the car where we're driving off to get Aerosmith tickets. It's like, this is it, because that was the last scene we shot, and then we were all going to go our separate ways. And we shared this moment, and it kind of felt like everyone was going to be moving on, our characters and us. We were going to be leaving Austin.
Yeah, it's and that final shot, slow ride, is great. And so it had to end, and this image here is from the final shot, or almost the final shot of them driving away in the car. It's Mitch arriving home, putting on his headphones, and you hear slow dive, slow dive, but it is a slow drive
Slow
too.
ride. Slow ride.
Slow ride, drive, dive. Uh, so yeah, so this is Marissa Ribisi. Oh, do you want to read these two? They're both females.
So Marissa Ribisi, she is the twin sister of Giovanni Ribisi. She is not a natural redhead, so that was a wig. So she said, we didn't have smartphones, we didn't have cars, we just had these crazy conversations, and that's why I think it got so crazy deep in the end. Everyone was sobbing. It was hard to leave. And then Catherine Dover said after the movie, Mila ran off with Sean. They got married in Vegas. Mila's mother had just left the week before. She'd gone back to LA. Mila's mother started procedures to annul right away. So good Lord.
Good move on her part. I don't think that was destined. One thing
No.
that Sean Andrews said in the interview, he was asked about Mila, and he said that it was the love of his life, and he has no regrets. He does not know if that feeling of her being the love of his life is reciprocated. My betting, yeah, I have to read my horoscope or see if there's a green ray, but I'm thinking no.
Yeah, and that seemed a little statutory-y too, because I think he's older than her. Yeah. So
This is the
you have this last one.
documentarian. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So it was poignant. They had all had this amazing experience together with a lot of extreme emotions and a lot of fun. And when that was over, it really made you think about the fleeting nature of things. It was the end of a life experience, and they all felt it palpably. I felt it myself.
So Kahane Cooperman, she wrote
Yep.
she made the documentary called Making Dazed, which is on the Criterion if you have it. I would recommend watching it. She basically was a fly on the wall for that entire time, so she saw a lot. Um, the entire chapter from All Right was about the sadness of it of that ending. You know, it was I think most of the time probably it's tough to leave a film shoot. You know, I think maybe some films it's they're glad to get out of there, but this was a very very special
I
moment.
think, and I think it shows in the performances
I
that
think so too.
I think they all seem to get along, and um, you can tell that it was kind of a family slash party atmosphere. All of that translates to the screen. So I think
That's
that's honestly why it works so well.
party, you say? Yeah, there was a little bit of partying. They didn't all get along, and it wasn't just Sean
No,
Andrews. Although I think they did have some bonding over their hatred of him. But here's some cast photos, and one with Linklater here. Yeah, and there are a lot of other ones in the book. So yeah, and this feels like a presentation advocating you all to read a book, and if it is, it is. So yeah, that was a lot. So thanks for hanging in there with us. But would love to hear what you have to say. Lewis.
got there, got there, son. You wouldn't know what to do if you got there. All right, Lewis.
Oh well, I mean, it's so hard to even decide what to say about this, but obviously we don't have forever. So I think what I'll focus on is something what struck me most on this viewing. And historically, I feel like I have viewed the film overall, and you just touched on it a little bit in the presentation, is very melancholy and sad film, despite all of the frivolity and the fun and the joking and hazing, all that stuff that's going on. But I've always looked at the melancholy, the sadness, the ending of the school year, um, as kind of the focus, especially in comparison to Everybody Wants Some, where it's all about the new season, the new year of college, and that special time period. Whereas like this is a focus of that special time right before summer. But what struck me this time was thinking it's not really one or the other, actually. To me, it's more talking about how high school, in a way, is sort of a microcosm and kind of like your first lesson on the cycle of life and how things are for the rest of your life. You have beginnings, middles, and ends, and it's all about what's new and the comparison of the seniors and how they're acting. And they're the ones who are typically kind of sad and melancholy. They're kind of over everything and they're ready to move on to the next. Whereas, the freshmen that are coming up, this is all new to them and exciting and fun and about that constant dynamic. And when you're in that, you don't really think about it on that level, even though these characters are, they're Linklater characters, so they are, surmising and having conversations about it a little bit. But I think that's what's so fascinating and what's so poignant, and what sticks with me on top of all of the, superficial pleasures of the film.
That's great. All right, Chris.
Okay. kind of was going to make a similar point to Louis there about kind of the last day of high school being this dividing line between a child and adult, and even through Pink's realization at the end that he can take charge of his own life at that point. I kind of like that kind of the ending of it. But I get to watch this with my 14-year-old son and my wife, who were both first time watches, and I didn't say anything other than I've got to watch this for a call this week, and said nothing about it. And my 14-year-old son was enjoying it, and then McConaughey shows up in that first line, and honestly, you could just see somebody light up, like watching the film, sat up straight, and every time McConaughey was on screen, it was like, I want more, I want more. So you definitely get that feel of it. And my wife ended the film, we're like, I mean, it was good. It's no Breakfast Club though, so I mean, it just shows everybody has opinions, you know.
Yeah, they do. All right.
All right, all right, all right.
Want to point out, I think it was Christian. I think you quoted, if these are Jason London's line, if these are if these are the best years of my life, then I go ahead and kill myself. I think that's a great way of like kind of equalizing, like, when we looked at Edge of 17, like 17 sucks no matter who you are. And that doesn't matter if you're king of the school or if you're the lonely, I don't want to mention cliques, but anyway, yeah, so next we have Rodney.
I think this movie just keeps getting better the more you see it. I've seen it
Do
several
you stay the same age? I'm sorry, Rodney, to cut you off there.
I don't, sadly. But I mean, it's like revisiting old friends, and the soundtrack just hit after hit after hit just keeps moving the film along, and everything about it I just love. I want to go to that space. Like I wish I could go to that time in history and be in high school, even if I'm going from middle school to high school. I'll take the beating, and it's such a fun film.
All right, Joe.
All right. Yeah. So I love this movie. It's always a pleasure to revisit it for a number of reasons, right? The cast, the soundtrack, and but the one thing I think I was kind of thinking about this last viewing was the first time I saw this movie, I think I was like just starting college, so it was like around then, right? So it was interesting. Thinking about like the first time I watched this around that time and watching it now when I have like a lot more responsibilities. I'm definitely not at this like stage in my life. But I think what's interesting about this movie is it's like a period piece, but it feels very much like looking back. It's very much about like looking back, and I think what really makes it something special is not only is it funny and entertaining, but it also has this poignancy to it. And I think the poignancy just comes from reflecting on and looking back on the period that it's depicting in our lives, right? Where we're sort of rudderless and we don't have a clear path yet. And it's kind of like scary and exciting at the same time, and I really got that sense from this viewing, and I think that kind of puts the movie up a level on. So I think it's always really impressive when a movie can be really funny, really entertaining, really rewatchable, but also profound in a lot of ways. And I would say that this movie has all those things, and I find that like Linklater is like really great with tone. Like I think the tone is so impressive in this movie. He maintains and his other films as well. I think he maintains this tone of both fun, nostalgia, kind of like, but also like there's melancholy there. I don't know. I always like visiting his films because I feel like he has a tone that is perfectly in line with what he's exploring about like life and memory and the past and present and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think he's interesting in pursuing, like he said in the notes I shared, he was okay with making a genre film, and that is what this is. It's a genre film, but it doesn't really feel like that. It feels like an honest portrayal. And so one thing in the book that, or not just in the book, but just in really all of the acclaim over the years is, I think the production was reticent or reluctant maybe afraid that people from different eras might not, appreciate this as much. But what they found is there's some universality to it. Like, everybody can identify in some to some degree. I don't know about kids today if I think childhood is a little different now. So we'll see how this keeps holding up. But they kept on seeing 70s kids, 80s kids, 90s kids, 60s kids. There are some truths in this movie. I'm glad you pointed that out. And we next have Christian.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen it, and what I took away from most is this movie's such a good hang. Like it's such a great hang. It's full of vibes. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It doesn't have like huge stakes. It's like life, like these small little things mean a lot to people at a certain stage in your life, like when you're 14, leaving eighth grade, and you're in a town that hazes them. You know what I mean? All these ritualistic things that I imagine this is to some degree autobiographical for Linklater. I think I read up on that, and a lot of this is a reflection of his own experiences. But I think that's part of it. What makes this magical is that it's about really nothing, and it's nostalgia, but it's not too mean spirited. Yeah, there's bullying and stuff like that going on, but he was just really portraying reality, right? It wasn't that he was necessarily saying this is good, this is right. This is just what it was, right? It was sort of coming up in life. You dealt with these things, these challenges. Things were not always, easy. So for some, it was easier than others. I love the idea of also seeing different people at different stages of their lives in the same town, and then you have that idea that starting with the middle schoolers, finishing up all the way up through like the coaches who seem like they've probably been there their whole lives. So you have this spectrum, and everybody kind of in some ways, there isn't that whole plot of, oh, what am I going to do for college, or what am I going to do with my life. It doesn't get caught up in some of the cliches of these kinds of movies. It kind of just it exists in that moment, lets you soak in it. The local color, the obviously the graffiti is an obvious comparison, which I love American Graffiti too. So driving around not knowing what the hell you're gonna do, just hanging out. It is a pure hang, and it's also authentic and real and touching a little bit too. I think it has a little bit of that in there. He doesn't overdo it in any one particular way. He lets a lot of I feel like there's a little bit of improv going on too. Maybe not, free flowing, but there definitely had to be a little bit in there too.
There's a lot, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine it felt that it had that feel of, and what I like is that it was only 17 years after it was portrayed. It still felt like it wasn't too much of a throwback. Like I feel like it also was kind of a reflection of the early 90s, because I would have been Mitch's age, a little bit older than Mitch, maybe like 15 in 93. So I was right at that age, just starting high school. So for me, I was very much in that zone of just still trying to figure out what the hell, who am I? What am I? And he has the coolest fucking mom ever. I mean, come on, man. Like, first night, you're still technically barely in middle school, or you're out all night, come in the morning, and she's like, oh, you get one of jail, get out of jail free card. I'm like, I would have got my ass beat so good. But so it's just such a fun, and then obviously I don't have to say the music is what it is, right? They're playing the hits, but it doesn't feel cliche. It feels like also just telling us with a big neon sign, this era of music was so fucking good. Like, and we're so lucky to live in that time. So always a joy to watch this, and it does feel like it's not going to age at all, just like high school girls.
They do age, I'm afraid. But Christian, if you were Mitch, that Laura chick, and I'm quoting the characters, that Laura chick, she loves you. Or the Julie chick. I said Laura, Julie. Okay, we have Rachel, Lewis, and then Jill will close us out. So Rachel, hope you liked this one a little better.
Oh, yes, I did. Thank you. I've seen this movie so many times, I don't remember a time when it wasn't part of my life, even though I was like 14 when it came out. But it's what I call a basement movie. And by that, I mean, it's a movie that my friends and I would watch in my parents' basement over and over and over again. Like, we don't know what to watch, we'll just watch Dazed again. There's overlap with Empire Records with Rory, but then also there's an Easter egg in Empire Records. There's a Dazed and Confused poster at the the register in the store, and I'm never sure if that was done on purpose or if it was a coincidence. But I love it. Parker is perfect in like everything she does. And she makes me so happy in this. Also, I noticed last night when she shows up at the Emporium, she has this little exchange with Matthew McConaughey, and I can't tell if it's scripted or if they just did it and their reaction, like you can tell whoever it is that they genuinely like had affection for each other. And Adam, I'm blanking on his last name, but he is so hilarious in this. He's the one who starts to fight with the stoner at the end. His line delivery of "I want to dance" never fails to make me laugh. Like it is so good. And I also just love that he's like talking about how he wants to help people, but then he realized he doesn't really like people, and I feel that deeply. So you know, it's a great movie. I'm glad you programmed it, and hopefully generations will continue to watch it.
My hero is myself in 10 years when I programmed this film for younger people. So, Lewis.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to what you were talking about, Aaron, actually, because it made me think of some things about the fact that you would think maybe it would be a nostalgia piece for a certain generation, but it actually, kind of reaches out to others. And that's something that I absolutely feel because, I was in high school 30 years after this is set, but it still felt very, very much like my experience, being growing up in a southern town, relatively the same size as what's portrayed in this movie. There was just so many moments that were just absolutely authentic, and it just makes it more impactful for me. Like the moment of the old guy stopping Jason London's character to talk about the next football season, and rattling off how many returning starters and returning lettermen they've got, and the depiction of the football coaches is just so spot on. It's brilliant, and it's like, wow, I've seen this exact scene play out in my life. And then also, one other thing that it does so well as a coming of age film, since that's kind of the context here, is that so many others don't do, like particularly something, I like The Breakfast Club, but just an example, the way it does create those stereotypes. One thing that I think is true to real life is that Linklater, he shows the overlap between groups. Sure, it's not just nerds and jocks. You have flow between these groups. It's not always complete overlap, and that's shown as well. But there is sort of this, sort of gray area and flow between them that I think is very authentic.
Agree.
That's great. So just a couple really quick thoughts. I love this movie. I watch it pretty much every year. And so this came out in 93. I started high school in 94. So by the time I got to high school, this movie was it. This is what everybody talked about. And at the time in the early 90s, where we have kind of like grunge being very mainstream, that's also butting up against this like faux indie pop cycled shit that they try to pass off as grunge now, and no one knows any different. That was kind of going on. And then there was also kind of a resurgence of 70s, late 60s and early 70s fashion in during this time. So kids have, and not just fashion, but like the music too. So like kids have Led Zeppelin blacklight posters in their bedroom, and they're wearing Grateful Dead tie-dye shirts to school. So everything, the 70s were and the music and the style was definitely very popular at this time, which I think a lot of people forget about. They only think about just how weird the 90s were, and the 90s were weird, but and definitely an identity crisis. But this movie is, I think, in a way sort of autobiographical for Linklater. He graduated from high school in 1976. And he's kind of on that cusp of being, he's Gen X, but he's on the older edge of it. He's 64, I think, 65. So he's kind of straddling that line. And so this is very much a Gen X movie, but also felt very of the time in 93. And everyone loved it. I also want to just point out that this is his most Robert Altman movie, because there are so many characters and there's so many little conversations. It's not quite like Nashville level, but you hear little things being said, like in Woodshop when, you know, when Sir's like showing him that he's got a leak on the wood bong, you know, and then like it cuts over to someone else talking, and then you hear Slater say something like off screen about like tripping acid and how like it. So there's like these little things that you hear, and in this time watching it, the whole time I'm going, yeah, this is kind of like stoner Gen X Robert Altman. Definitely kind of had that vibe. This movie, like I said, was like the gospel for my group of friends, and our group was made up of these people. There were a few jocks, there were the slackers and the stoners, and there were a few socias. There were like a couple really nice popular girls who liked the weird kids. There was the smart, there was the nerd, there was the band nerd, and we had this, and then we had connections through each other to other groups, right? And then there were the people we just stayed clear the fuck away from. But this, I think, is probably, even though it's kind of like, I think, everyone's high school experience on steroids, but this is probably one of the most realistic portrayals of like what my high school experience was like. And there were always older kids hanging around. So there was always like a Wooderson type who, you know, just could not like move on. So it was either a former student or like someone's older second cousin who would show up. So all of those things kind of play real to me. So even though this is set in 76 and there's a lot of the culture of what was going on at the time, it's still, to me, I think of it as 1993. Like that is what I think of. And just every time I watch it, I pull something new from it. This time was this scene behind me is what really had me giggling. You know, just little things here and there that are dropped in. So, and just because I have to say this, no, I don't approve of hazing. I think it's awful. You know, however, the shit went on back then, and unfortunately it still does to some extent. So it's not I'm not condoning any of this kind of behavior, but it is really fucking funny. Especially, you know, do your mouth like this. And then you just hear Slater say, man, that is so, man.
Degrading, man.
Anyways, it's so degrading, man. So degrading. Anyways, I'm glad that all of you like this, and yeah, I'm gonna probably put it on again after I get off this call because I want to see all the parts again. So
It's great.
yeah, so we're gonna wrap things up. So first of all, I just want to say that Aaron put together this entire presentation while I was writhing in misery last week. So thank you, Aaron, for doing all of this. You did a great job. And
It was terrible. I hated it, as
I
you can
hated every
tell.
minute of it. All right, so we just have some links here. The book, I actually have not read it, but I did order it. It's really cheap on Amazon right now. Although I always urge people to go to their local bookstores, but I got this for like $11. But I can't wait to dive into it. And then if you have that, Criterion release, I don't have the 4K. I haven't plopped down for that, but I don't think they changed the special features. But just have a look at those special features. It's really great, and just the packaging on that whole set is so good. All right, and then listen, I can't believe I'm saying this, but September is just a few days away. And so we have our classic suspense, which Aaron and I came up with the dumbest name ever, Suspense-tember. Say
Watch it
that 5
stick.
times fast. Suspense-tember. It's gonna give November a real run for its money. And then we, for a little bit, had paused web development just because we kind of wanted to get our footing, and we have resumed a few things. And so we have some things in the works, including something called My Journeys, which just hold on that. That'll be coming soonish. And then a new dashboard for members, and a lot of other things that we've got cooked up. And so we're pretty excited to unveil new things. So if you are not signed up for Suspense-tember, come and join us. We did have to change one of the films. The film The Tall Target by Anthony Mann, which I'm so freaking bummed is no longer on streaming. You can find like a super old DVD that through Warner Archive, but we decided to swap it out, so it'll be an optional film, and we are instead going with
310 to Yuma.
310 to Yuma, the Delmer Daves.
Yeah,
So I wanted to stick with a Western and one with suspense, and that is what we're doing. So but I'm pretty excited about that because that's also another favorite. But if you do have The Tall Target, or if you can find it, wink wink nudge nudge, I would highly suggest that you check it out. So
and so we end up with Diabolique and 310 to Yuma, two movies that were remade. One I don't think is going to be. Don't make the mistake of watching the remake of Diabolique. That's just my
and
my
honestly,
pro tip.
I'm just gonna say, don't watch the remake of 310 to Yuma either. It's fine, but I think the original is far better.
I agree. Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway,
and then we're gonna watch a remake of a original.
That's right. We're gonna watch the original and the reimagining. So but anyways, so thanks for being flexible on that, but Aaron broke that news to me yesterday and I did not take it well at all.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's all your fault. So
yeah.
thank y'all so much.
See you in a few days. Yeah, thanks everybody.
Yeah, thank you so much.